Open the cage, Director Calvor said, and let the human learn what prey feels like. Jack Mercer heard the lock disengage behind him and felt his stomach drop. 20 feet away, beyond a curtain of artificial fog, something enormous shifted in the dark. The observation gallery on the other side of 8 inches of reinforced glass was packed with alien researchers, military officers, and council observers. Jack could see their pale faces reflected in the monitors. Nobody looked concerned enough to stop this. That bothered him more than the cage. Director, Dr. Lyra Vey said, her voice tight. Mercer did not consent to direct exposure. Ver never looked away from Jack. He is protected by the barrier protocol. Jack glanced around the enclosure. Bare walls. Smooth floor. No furniture. No place to climb. One sealed door behind him. Whatever they had put in here had been given every advantage. That's supposed to make me feel better? Jack asked. No one answered. A low sound rolled out of the fog. Jack's mouth went dry. His heart hammered hard enough that he could feel it against his ribs. He thought about Emily back in Denver, probably checking her phone and wondering why her dad had missed another call. He thought about the stupid cup of coffee sitting beside his toolbox upstairs. Mostly, he thought about how badly he wanted that door to open. The creature stepped into view. Mara, 9, stood nearly 6 feet at the shoulder, supported by 6 powerful limbs, her dark blue-black hide catching strips of laboratory light. Her head remained low. She was watching him. Predatory response beginning, Vor announced. Human cardiac activity elevated 43%. Jack swallowed. Yeah, no kidding. A few observers made amused clicking sounds. Vor smiled. Fear response confirmed. Jack barely heard him. An old memory had surfaced instead. Colorado mountains, cold morning air, his father's hand stopping 12-year-old Jack from running when movement appeared between the trees. Do not run. Running answers the animal's question for it. Mara moved closer. 15 feet. Jack forced his hands open. 10. Every instinct in his body begged him to back toward the door. He stayed where he was. Come on, Mercer, Ver murmured over the speaker. Show us what humans really are. Jack looked at Mara, not directly into her eyes, but close enough to track her movement. Something about her posture felt wrong. She was tense, but she was not advancing like an animal eager to hunt. She looked uncertain. Jack slowly lowered his shoulders. Okay, he whispered. I see you. Mara stopped. The gallery went quiet. Lyra leaned toward her monitor. Director, her aggression markers are dropping. Vor's smile disappeared. Impossible. Jack noticed something beneath Mara's neck. A metal collar pressed tightly against her skin, surrounded by irritated tissue. Tiny indicator lights pulsed along its edge. Mara turned slightly, and Jack saw her flinch when the collar moved. His fear did not disappear. It changed. What did you do to her? He asked. Vor ignored him. Activate stimulus level 1. Lyra spun toward him. No, a warning light flashed on Mara's collar. She recoiled, and Jack finally understood. The creature was not choosing this. Turn that thing off, he said. Vor leaned toward the microphone. You are inside an enclosure with the most efficient predator ever recovered from Ver space. I suggest you worry about yourself. Jack stared through the glass at him. His voice became quieter. I am. Mara stepped forward again. 5 feet. Jack could hear her breathing now. His own hands were shaking. He let them shake. Easy, he whispered. Neither of us asked to be here. Mara lowered her head. Then every monitor in the observation gallery flickered. The audio feed vanished. Telemetry dropped to 0. Cameras dissolved into static. Lyra struck the console. Jack. Nothing answered. Ver stared at the dead screens, waiting for the predator's roar. 10 seconds passed. Then 20. Then 30. Not a sound came from inside the cage. And for the first time that day, Director Calvor looked afraid. 11 hours earlier, Jack Mercer had been standing on a 12-foot maintenance ladder with half his body buried inside an air recycler, wondering why humanity had crossed 40 light-years only to discover that alien ventilation systems broke exactly like the ones back home. Tell me you found it, called a voice below. Jack pulled out a clogged filter cartridge and stared at the gray mess coating it. Found it. Somebody installed this backward. Dr. Lyra Vey looked up at him, silver eyes narrowing. Her pale teal skin caught the cold laboratory lights, giving her an almost luminous appearance. That component was installed by certified Ver technicians. Then certified Ver technicians installed it backward. Jack climbed down, wiped his hands on a rag, and checked the time. He had 40 minutes before Emily called from Denver. Missing another call from his daughter would require an explanation considerably more dangerous than anything aboard Orson Research Station. Lyra followed as he carried the damaged filter toward his toolbox. You are unusually comfortable correcting people with higher credentials. I fix machines. Machines do not care about credentials. You always answer questions like that? Only when I am tired. Lyra almost smiled. That was when the containment doors opened. Director Calvor entered with 2 station officers behind him, dressed in the dark formal coat he wore whenever council representatives were aboard. Vor had the polished manner of someone who never raised his voice because everyone around him had already learned to obey it. His violet-gray eyes settled on Jack. Mr. Mercer. Convenient. Jack closed his toolbox. That usually means more work. A demonstration. Nothing strenuous. Vor gestured toward the adjoining research chamber, where a holographic display showed silhouettes of predators collected from dozens of worlds. The Council is reviewing my universal threat classification system today. We require behavioral data from several species. Humanity remains incomplete. Jack glanced at Lyra. I am an environmental systems engineer. Precisely. An ordinary specimen. Jack gave him a flat look. You really know how to make a guy feel special. 20 minutes later, Jack stood inside a marked testing square while holographic creatures appeared around him. The first rushed from his left. Jack stepped sideways and immediately checked the nearest exit. The second appeared behind Lyra. Jack moved between her and the projection before realizing it was not real. Vor noticed. Interesting. Another predator appeared. Jack did not retreat. His eyes moved across the room instead, measuring doors, obstacles, distances, people. Elevated stress, Vor said. Minimal aggression. Strong environmental scanning. Delayed prey response. Lyra studied Jack's readings. That is not what he is doing. Vor turned. Explain. He checks other individuals before himself. Jack rubbed the back of his neck. Can we not turn basic situational awareness into a scientific breakthrough? I have a call in 20 minutes. Vor stepped closer. One final test. No, the answer came easily. Vor blinked. Jack picked up his toolbox. I volunteered for harmless projections. I am done. He started toward the door. The door locked before he reached it. Jack stopped. 2 security officers moved into position behind him. Lyra's expression changed. Director, what did you authorize? Vor touched the control panel, and the wall beside them turned transparent. Beyond it was a massive containment enclosure. Something moved in the darkness. Jack slowly set his toolbox down. That was not part of the deal. The holographic results are inconclusive, Vor said. A live stimulus will provide definitive data. Jack looked at Lyra. She was already searching through the authorization file. There is an emergency research clause, she said quietly. He classified humans as provisional deathworld organisms. Jack stared at her for a moment. So you are telling me this is legal? Lyra did not answer. Jack exhaled through his nose. He thought about Emily waiting for his call. Then he looked through the glass again as a pair of reflective eyes appeared in the darkness. All right, he said softly. Now I am starting to understand what kind of place this is. Behind him, heavy locks engaged, and Vor ordered security to escort Jack toward the containment corridor. The security officers did not touch Jack until the containment corridor sealed behind them. That bothered him. People who expected trouble usually grabbed your arms. These 2 simply walked 6 feet behind him, as if the destination itself made resistance pointless. Jack kept his eyes forward. Through narrow windows along the corridor, he caught glimpses of reinforced enclosures, environmental chambers, and warning symbols he could not read. How many animals do you keep down here? He asked. Neither officer answered. Lyra followed several steps behind, arguing quietly with Vor through her communicator. The clause permits emergency evaluation after evidence of a biological threat. Mr. Mercer has demonstrated no threat. Vor's voice came back smooth and patient. His species originates from a classified death world. That classification is evidence. Jack glanced over his shoulder. That is some impressive paperwork. Lyra lowered the communicator. I am trying to stop this. I know. His answer surprised her. Jack nodded toward the officers. Save your argument for somebody who might listen. They reached a circular chamber overlooking the main enclosure. Vor was already there, standing beside a bank of monitors. A three-dimensional image rotated above the central console. Mara 9. 6 limbs. Heavy skeletal structure. Limited vision. Exceptional hearing. Chemical sensitivity several times greater than anything Jack had encountered on Earth. Vor expanded a behavioral chart. This species locates vulnerable organisms through stress chemistry and changes in cardiac rhythm. Jack studied the image. So fear gets its attention. Essentially. And your plan is to scare me in front of it. My plan is to observe. Jack looked through the glass. The enclosure beyond was nearly 60 feet across, dimly lit and deliberately empty. From this side of the wall, Vor smiled faintly. Naturally, Lyra moved to another console and opened Mara's history. Her expression tightened. Director, her aggression index has increased after every trial, which makes her ideal. It makes the data unreliable. Vor finally looked annoyed. Dr. Vey, the council did not travel across 3 systems to watch us debate methodology. Jack caught something else on Lyra's screen before Vor closed the file. Repeated stimulation sessions. Restraint cycles. A diagram of the metal collar fitted around Mara's neck. Jack pointed at it. What is that? Behavioral control equipment, Vor said. For staff protection. Does it hurt her? Silence. Jack looked at Lyra. She did not lie. It can produce an aversive neurological stimulus. That sounds like a fancy way of saying yes. Vor stepped between Jack and the display. You are an engineer, Mr. Mercer, not a xenobiologist. No argument there. Jack leaned closer to the glass. Something large crossed the darkness beyond it, almost soundlessly. But I know what a control system looks like. Vor signaled the officers. Prepare him. One officer removed Jack's communicator. The other took his utility belt. Jack watched his phone disappear into a storage compartment. Emily would call in 8 minutes. For the first time, irritation pushed past his fear. I need 30 seconds. For what? My daughter. Vor checked the time. The trial takes priority. Jack stared at him. She is 16. I told her I would call. She will survive the inconvenience. The room became very still. Lyra looked at Jack, expecting anger. It never came. He simply turned back toward the enclosure. Okay, he said. Something in his voice made Lyra straighten. Vor mistook it for surrender. Excellent. Open containment access. The inner door slid aside. Cool air rolled through, carrying an unfamiliar earthy scent. Somewhere inside the enclosure, Mara began moving. Jack took one step toward the entrance, then stopped beside Lyra. That collar, he said quietly. Can he activate it remotely? Lyra hesitated. Yes. Jack nodded once. Then whatever happens in there, watch his hands. Vor heard him. Are you suggesting misconduct? Jack looked at the dark enclosure and then at the man controlling it. I am suggesting I finally figured out which one of you I should be worried about. A deep sound came from beyond the doorway. This time nobody laughed. Jack stepped inside, and the door sealed behind him. The door sealed with a heavy mechanical thud, and Jack immediately understood why Vor had removed his utility belt. Inside the enclosure, there was nothing useful. No loose equipment. No raised platform. No emergency handle. Just 60 feet of smooth composite flooring and a frightened animal somewhere beyond the dim lights. Jack stayed near the wall without pressing himself against it. The observation speaker crackled. Your heart rate is rising again, Vor said. Try to behave naturally. Jack looked toward the glass. I am locked in a cage with something you call an apex predator. This is natural. A shape moved along the far side of the enclosure. Mara emerged slowly, 6 feet tall at the shoulder, her blue-black hide shifting beneath the overhead lights. She did not charge. She circled. Jack turned just enough to keep her in view without squaring his body toward her. Behind the glass, Lyra watched the telemetry. He is controlling his breathing. Vor folded his hands behind his back. Temporary suppression. Fear always wins. Mara came within 15 feet. Jack noticed her front limbs were positioned unevenly. Not injured exactly. Guarded. Then he saw the collar again. A tiny amber light blinked beneath her throat. Easy, Jack said. I am not coming over there. Mara lowered her head. Vor touched the control panel. Lyra caught the movement. Do not stimulate her. The subject is failing to produce a meaningful response. Because she is choosing not to attack him. Vor pressed the control. Mara jerked backward with a startled cry. Jack's head snapped toward the observation window. I told you to turn that off. Focus on the animal, Mr. Mercer. The collar flashed again. Mara suddenly rushed forward. Jack moved sideways at the last possible moment, not toward the door, but toward the open center of the enclosure. Mara swept past him and skidded to a stop. Jack kept moving, putting distance between them without running. His breathing came faster now. "Jack," Lyra called through the speaker. "Stay away from the eastern wall." Jack glanced right. A narrow service trench ran along the floor. He changed direction. Mara turned and came toward him again, faster this time. Jack spotted a waist-high maintenance barrier near the environmental intake and stepped behind it. Mara struck the barrier with her shoulder, sending it sliding several feet across the floor. Jack stumbled back, but stayed upright. "That was your warning," he said under his breath. "Message received." Vor increased the stimulus. Lyra reached for his hand. "Stop." He pulled away. "Do not interfere with my trial. This is not a trial anymore." Mara approached Jack again, but something had changed. She was not watching him. Her head tilted whenever the amber light on her collar activated. Jack saw it too. He looked from Mara to Vor's control station. "You are steering her." Vor said nothing. "You are not measuring predator behavior. You are manufacturing it." Several council observers exchanged uneasy looks. Vor's expression hardened. "Continue the sequence." The collar flashed. Mara lunged. This time Jack did something nobody expected. Instead of retreating, he moved toward her. Lyra grabbed the microphone. "Jack, do not." Jack dropped low as Mara passed, then pivoted toward her left side. She spun around, confused by prey that refused to behave like prey. Jack raised both empty hands. "Hey, look at me." Mara froze. "That is it," he said softly. "Not him. Me." Her breathing slowed for half a second. Jack could now see where the collar met her skin. He also saw a recessed release catch beneath the metal housing. Vor saw Jack looking at it. "Security," he said sharply. "Prepare containment override." Jack heard him through the speaker. He looked straight through the glass. "There it is." "What?" Vor demanded. Jack took one careful step toward Mara. "The part you were hoping I would not notice." Mara lowered her massive head until the collar was almost within reach, and Lyra stared at her monitor as Jack's hand began moving toward the release. Jack stopped with his hand 6 inches from the collar. Mara could have closed that distance before he finished a breath, but she did not. Her head remained low, her 6 limbs planted against the floor, her attention fixed on him with an intensity that made every instinct in his body demand space. Jack ignored the demand. "You know what this thing does, do you not?" he murmured. Mara's breathing changed. Not calmer. Expectant. Behind the glass, Lyra stared at the behavioral display. "Director, look at her response curve." Vor did not move. "I am looking." "No, you are looking at Mercer. Look at her. She is anticipating the stimulus before you activate it." One of the council observers leaned toward the monitor. The pattern was obvious now. Every time Vor's hand approached the control, Mara's stress markers climbed. Before the collar activated. Before Jack moved. "She is afraid of the collar," Lyra said. Jack heard her through the speaker. His eyes stayed on Mara. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I figured that out." Vor reached for the control again. Jack finally looked toward him. "Do not. Step away from the specimen. Her name is Mara." Vor's face tightened. "Mara, 9 is research property." Jack gave a small shake of his head. "That right there is your problem." Vor activated the collar. Mara recoiled, then surged toward Jack. He did not try to outrun her. He moved around the maintenance barrier, forcing her to change direction, then stopped when the collar light faded. Mara stopped too. The two stood barely 8 feet apart. Jack pointed toward the observation glass. "He does that, you come at me. He stops, you stop." Mara's head tilted. "You are not hunting me," Lyra whispered. "She is responding to conditioned direction." Vor turned sharply. "Silence. You trained her to attack whatever target is inside the enclosure. I made an uncontrollable predator useful." Jack heard that. Something in his expression settled. Not anger. Decision. He lowered himself slowly to one knee. Lyra immediately reached for the microphone. "Jack, what are you doing?" "Changing the test." "That is not advisable." Neither was coming to work today. Mara approached. 6 feet. 4. Jack could smell the strange mineral scent of her hide. He could also see the release catch clearly now. It was designed for technicians wearing protective equipment, not bare human hands. He extended one hand, palm down. Mara leaned closer. The gallery became completely quiet. Vor reached for the control. Lyra caught his wrist. "No." Release me. The council is watching. That stopped him for 1 second. It was enough. Mara touched her snout to Jack's hand. Jack exhaled slowly. There you go. The predator lowered her head another inch. Jack's fingers found the edge of the collar. A warning appeared across Lyra's console. Her silver eyes widened. Jack, wait. The collar is tied into the enclosure telemetry. If you disengage it manually, the containment network may interpret it as a system breach. Meaning, cameras, audio, environmental monitoring. We could lose everything. Jack looked through the glass at Vor. Vor looked back at him, and Jack suddenly understood why the director had not ordered security inside. Without the collar, Vor did not know what Mara would do. Nobody did. Jack turned back to the animal. Guess we are both about to find out. His thumb pressed against the release catch. Vor lunged for the control panel. Lyra shouted his name. The collar flashed amber. Mara gave a startled roar, and Jack closed his hand around the mechanism. Every light in the enclosure went out. Darkness swallowed the enclosure so completely that Jack could not see his own hand. For 1 terrible second, he heard Mara moving somewhere beside him. Then the loose collar struck the floor with a metallic clang. Jack froze. Easy, he whispered. I am still here. Outside the enclosure, the observation gallery erupted in confusion. Emergency lights washed the room in dim red. Lyra hammered commands into her console. Telemetry is gone. Audio is gone. I have no visual feed. Vor shoved past her and opened the containment controls. Restore the collar link. There is no collar link anymore. Then activate the secondary conditioning system. Lyra stopped typing. What secondary system? Vor hesitated, and that tiny pause told her everything. She opened an administrator menu she had never been authorized to access. A hidden control tree appeared beneath Mara's medical file. Lyra stared at it. You installed emitters inside the enclosure. A necessary safeguard. You told the council the collar was the only behavioral control. Vor leaned close enough that his voice dropped below the confused chatter around them. Dr. Vey, choose your next words carefully. Inside, Jack heard a faint electronic hum begin beneath the floor. Mara heard it too. Her breathing changed instantly. She moved away from Jack, claws scraping against the smooth surface as she searched the darkness. Whatever you are doing, Jack called toward the dead speaker. Knock it off. He had no idea whether anyone could hear him. The hum climbed higher. Mara released a frightened warning sound. Jack remembered the maintenance barrier near the eastern wall. He moved slowly until his shoe touched its base, then crouched and felt along the housing. His fingers found a service panel. Come on, he muttered. He pulled it open and traced the wiring by touch. Environmental intake. Lighting. Sensor bus. Then a cable that did not belong. Jack had spent 14 years repairing systems designed by engineers who believed nobody would ever need to repair them in the dark. This, at least, was familiar. Found you. He disconnected the unfamiliar line. The hum stopped. Mara went still. In the gallery, half the emergency displays suddenly returned. Lyra looked at the diagnostic report. He disabled the emitter. Vor's eyes narrowed. Without schematics, he is an engineer. He is contaminating the experiment. There is no experiment left. Vor turned to the security officers. Prepare a retrieval team. Lyra stepped between him and the command station. You are bringing armed security into a dark enclosure with an unrestrained animal? I am recovering council property. And Jack. Vor looked at her without emotion. Mr. Mercer has repeatedly interfered with authorized research. His safety is now secondary. Several council observers heard that. One quietly activated a personal recorder. Vor noticed and changed tactics immediately. Seal the gallery, he ordered. The door's locked. Director, one observer demanded. Vor ignored him. He opened a private system menu and selected Purge Experimental Record. Lyra saw the command before he confirmed it. You are deleting the evidence. I am protecting this station from corrupted data. She reached for the console, but Vor entered his authorization first. Files began disappearing. Mara's conditioning history. Hidden emitter logs. Trial records. Lyra stared at the shrinking archive and then at the black observation window. Inside the cage, a small green emergency light flickered back to life. Jack was sitting on the floor beside the open service panel. Mara stood 10 feet away. Neither was attacking the other. Jack slowly extended his hand. Mara approached, lowered herself beside him, and rested her enormous head near his boots. The gallery fell silent. Vor looked at the animal, then at Jack, and something colder than embarrassment crossed his face. "Security," he said. "Change of plan. Nobody opens that cage." Lyra turned toward him. "Why?" Vor watched Jack through the glass. "Because if he walks out, the council learns what happened in here." "Nobody opens that cage?" Lyra repeated. "You just trapped a civilian inside with an animal you spent months conditioning to attack." Vor kept his attention on the observation window. "I am containing an unstable situation." Jack could not hear them, but he understood enough from their faces. The emergency light had restored only a weak green glow inside the enclosure. Mara remained beside him, no longer pacing, no longer searching for something to attack. Jack studied the loose collar on the floor, then looked toward the glass. "Let me guess," he called, knowing the microphone might still be dead. "This is the part where the paperwork gets complicated." Lyra turned to the council observers. "Did anyone record his order?" One delegate raised a small personal device. "I did." Vor's composure slipped for half a second. "That recording contains restricted research material." "It contains your voice," the delegate replied. "That is what concerns me." Vor reached for the gallery network controls. Lyra moved first. She transferred the remaining diagnostic cache to her personal terminal and locked it behind council credentials. "You cannot erase everything," she said. "The environmental system keeps an independent maintenance log." Vor looked toward Jack. That was the mistake. Lyra followed his gaze and understood. Jack had disconnected the hidden emitter through a service panel. The station had recorded the unauthorized hardware the moment he broke its circuit. "You hid the conditioning system from your own engineering network," she said. "But the network still knows it exists." Inside the enclosure, Jack noticed Mara watching the observation gallery. Her head lifted whenever Vor moved near the controls. "You know him," Jack murmured. Mara gave a low breath. "Yeah, I'm starting to know him too." A speaker suddenly clicked alive. Vor's voice filled the enclosure. "Mr. Mercer, move to the western door. Security will retrieve you." Jack looked toward the western side. Mara immediately stood and backed away from it. Jack noticed. "What is behind that door?" "Your exit." "That was not my question." Lyra checked the facility map. Her face changed. "Jack, do not approach it." Vor cut her microphone. Jack smiled without humor. "There we go." The western door opened 3 inches. A high electronic tone leaked through the gap. Mara reacted instantly, retreating toward Jack. He saw the pattern now. The collar had never been the whole system. The doors, emitters, even the enclosure layout had been built to push Mara exactly where Vor wanted her. Jack stepped between Mara and the opening. "Close it." Vor widened the gap. "Proceed to the exit." "Not until you shut down whatever is behind it." "You are refusing rescue." Jack looked through the glass. "No, I am refusing instructions from the guy who put me here." Several council observers turned toward Vor. The story he had controlled all day was falling apart in real time. Lyra restored her microphone through an auxiliary channel. "Jack, I found the original behavioral records. Mara was not captured attacking a settlement. She approached a survey camp after an injury. She never harmed anyone." Jack stared at the animal beside him. "Then why classify her as an apex threat?" Lyra looked at Vor. "Because his model predicted she would be one." Silence spread through the gallery. Vor had not studied a dangerous predator. He had created the behavior needed to prove his theory. Jack bent down and picked up the disabled collar. So this whole thing was never about finding out what she was. He held it where the observers could see it. It was about making sure she became what you already wrote in your report. Vor's face hardened. Then every containment door indicator on Lyra's console changed from green to red. "What did you do?" she demanded. Vor entered a final authorization code. "If the council wants uncontaminated evidence," he said quietly, "then we will give them a true predator response." Somewhere beneath the enclosure, heavy machinery awakened. Jack felt the floor vibrate. Across the room, 3 additional containment doors began unlocking at once. The 3 containment doors stopped halfway open. Jack heard movement beyond them, but Mara did not charge. She moved in front of him instead. Her 6-legged frame lowered toward the floor, placing herself between Jack and whatever Vor had released. Jack stared at her. "You have got to be kidding me." Behind the glass, Lyra scanned the enclosure map. "Those chambers are occupied." A council delegate turned toward Vor. "By what?" Vor said nothing. Lyra opened the species records. 3 animals from separate worlds. all classified as high-level predators under his program. And all conditioned? The delegate asked. Lyra checked the files. Her silver eyes hardened. Yes. Jack could not hear the conversation, but he could see Lyra working. Then the first animal emerged. It was smaller than Mara, low to the ground, covered in pale armored plates. It took 2 steps into the enclosure and stopped. A second creature appeared from another door, tall and narrow, with 4 long limbs and large dark eyes. The third remained near its threshold. Jack expected chaos. Instead, all 3 animals looked confused. No collar lights flashed. No hidden emitters pushed them forward. Without Vor's conditioning systems telling them what to fear and where to move, they simply stood there. Jack slowly looked toward the observation window. That your true predator response? Vor's jaw tightened. Lyra reopened the speaker channel. Jack, do not make sudden movements. Their control systems are offline. I noticed. They may behave unpredictably. Jack watched the armored animal sniff the floor. Seems like everybody in this room has been saying that about everybody else. Vor stepped toward the manual control station. Lyra blocked him. It is over. Move. No, Vor lowered his voice. You are throwing away your career for a maintenance worker and 4 research specimens. Lyra glanced through the glass at Jack. No, I am trying to remember why I became a scientist. One of the council delegates raised his recorder. Director Vor, you are ordered to surrender station control pending investigation. Vor laughed once. You think this station belongs to the council? He entered a code into his wrist terminal. Red warning symbols appeared across the gallery. Lyra's expression changed. He initiated sterilization protocol. Jack heard the station alarm through the restored speaker. Lyra, the enclosure atmosphere will be evacuated in 4 minutes. Jack looked up at the ceiling vents. Can you stop it? He locked me out. Jack turned toward the open maintenance panel. He had already seen the environmental lines when he disconnected the emitter. Airflow, pressure sensors, emergency bypass. The system was complicated, but complicated did not mean unfamiliar. I might have another option. He crossed to the panel. Mara followed. The other animals watched, but did not interfere. Jack removed the outer cover and studied the colored indicators. Jack, that system was designed for VAIR technicians, Lyra said. Good for them. You do not have the schematic. I did not have one 11 hours ago when your recycler was installed backward either. Despite everything, Lyra almost smiled. Jack found the pressure control bus and traced it toward a manual mechanical valve. Vor noticed what he was doing. Security, stop him. Nobody moved. The 2 officers looked at the council delegates, then at the animals standing peacefully around the human they had been told was prey. Vor raised his voice. That is an order. One officer removed his security badge and placed it on the console. Not anymore. Vor stared at him. That was the moment his authority disappeared. Jack turned the manual valve. The alarm changed pitch. Lyra watched the pressure reading stabilize. He bypassed sterilization. A council delegate immediately transmitted the surviving records through an external emergency channel. Vor lunged for the communications console, but Lyra locked him out. The files are already gone, she said. Gone where? Every council research office in this sector. For the first time, Vor had no answer. Jack returned to Mara and looked through the glass. Open the door. Lyra reached for the release. Vor suddenly smiled. You still do not understand. He pointed at the council display. A new classification warning had appeared beside Jack Mercer's name. Lyra read it twice. Vor had secretly changed Jack's status before the trial began. He had not registered the human as a participant. He had registered him as a dangerous biological specimen. Under station law, opening the enclosure would trigger an automatic armed quarantine across the entire research deck. Jack saw Lyra's face and knew immediately there was another problem. What now? Lyra looked at the sealed exit, then at him. We can prove what Vor did. She paused. But legally, I still cannot open that door. Lyra stared at the quarantine warning, then at the legal code beneath it. If I open the door, station security automatically treats you as an escaped biological threat. Jack leaned against the service panel. So Vor kidnapped me, changed my paperwork, and now the paperwork says I am dangerous. One council delegate gave Vor a cold look. That is an unusually convenient sequence of events. Vor straightened his coat. Some of his confidence returned. Convenient or not, station law is clear. Jack looked at Lyra. You said emergency classifications need evidence. They do. What evidence did he submit? Lyra opened Jack's file. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then her expression shifted. The predator response test. Jack almost laughed. The test he just falsified? Lyra looked at the council delegate. He understood immediately. A classification based on fraudulent research has no legal standing. Ver stepped forward. You cannot invalidate my authority without a formal hearing. I am not invalidating your authority, the delegate said. I am invalidating your evidence. He entered his council credentials. Jack's warning symbol disappeared. The word specimen vanished from his record. In its place appeared civilian engineer, Terran citizen. Lyra placed her hand on the release. Jack Mercer, you are free to leave. The enclosure door opened. Nobody moved. Jack looked down at Mara. She looked toward the doorway, then back at him. The other 3 animals remained scattered across the enclosure, uncertain of what freedom was supposed to look like. Jack stepped through alone. The security officers approached for instead. He looked genuinely offended. You are making a serious mistake. Jack stopped beside him. For hours, War had studied him as a category, a heartbeat, a stress response, something that could be measured and controlled. Now Jack simply looked tired. That is the thing about mistakes, he said. They get expensive when you keep making them on purpose. Vor was escorted from the gallery without another word. 3 months later, the Predator program at Orison Research Station no longer existed. The council investigation found years of manipulated behavioral data and unauthorized conditioning trials. Lyra was appointed to lead the replacement program, although she refused to call it a Predator program. Her first policy was simple: observation before intervention, and pain never counted as evidence. Jack went back to environmental systems. He preferred machines. Machines were easier. On a quiet afternoon, Lyra found him replacing another air filter. Backward again? She asked. Jack inspected it. Actually, they got this one right. I am a little disappointed. She handed him a tablet. Mara had been transferred to a protected habitat nearly 40 acres across. No collar. No emitters. No forced trials. The report said she had approached her new caretakers voluntarily for the first time that morning. Jack read it twice. Good. Lyra studied him. There is something I still do not understand. You believed Mara could kill you. Yet once you understood what had been done to her, you tried to protect her. What? Jack set the tablet down. His phone buzzed. Emily. He smiled and answered before the second ring. Give me 1 minute, kiddo. Then he looked at Lyra. You thought I was the one trapped in that room. Lyra waited. Jack glanced toward the distant habitat window. I could go home. His voice softened. She could not. Lyra said nothing after that. Years later, when the council rewrote its standards for contact with dangerous species, Jack Mercer's name appeared only once in the official record, buried in a footnote nobody bothered to read. Mara's name appeared once too. But among the researchers who remembered what happened on Orison, the lesson survived without either name. Intelligence was not the ability to dominate something weaker. Strength was not making another creature afraid enough to obey. And sometimes the most dangerous being in the room was simply the one powerful enough to hurt something, angry enough to have a reason, and decent enough to choose not to.